Founding Fathers. McKinley sought to maintain it, but he was seduced into the gold standard because he sought to maintain bimetallism in the United States, but in his agreements with, I believe, Italy, Germany, and England, they didn't want to accept bimetallism. All they would accept is a gold standard. Well, the gold standard is a criminal act. The gold standard made the United States unable to repay the national debt, or at least to make it much harder to repay, because the monetization of silver, and we were bursting at the seams with silver coin, would have made it much easier to repay. By making silver not monetary monies to be able to repay the national debt, you made it much harder to repay. That's the evil and wickedness of the gold standard. And the gold standard is the forerunner to gold collection, which is what FDR did in 1933. Called in all the gold coins and made it a crime to own gold coins.
Right.
And then after that crime, then they stole all the gold out of Fort Knox and moved it to the Federal Reserve Bank. And FDR gave title to all the gold to the Jesuits controlling the Federal Reserve Bank. It's all in the Federal Reserve storage vaults. The next crime after that is to completely float the currency, is what Nixon did in 1971, and now we have a total fiat currency. But to get there, we had to adopt the gold standard. To adopt the gold standard, you had to abandon bimetallism. McKinley was intimidated into abandoning bimetallism.
Okay.
McKinley was also, I'll read down the list here that I have describing him.
Okay.
He was, of course, a Freemason, a low-level Freemason. Of course, we know according to the protocols, the Jesuits killed low-level Freemasons when they get out of order. Garfield was also one. He was a condemned Methodist heretic, a cursed political liberal. He was a private brevet major, 23rd Regiment, Ohio Volunteer Infantry, 1861 to 65. He proved himself valiant in battle. He was a brave man. I call him the unaware 9th Commander-in-Chief of the Pope's Holy Roman 14th Amendment American Empire from 1897 to 1901. He pressed to begin building the Black Pope's offshore American Empire, using reunited and integrated northern and southern soldiers consolidated into imperial, internationally based, crusading American Roman legions directed by Wall Street's corporate, fascist, cartel, capitalist monopolies ruling the executive branch of government, the legion to be financed with a heavy, progressive, and graduated personal as well as corporate income tax in accordance with the orders Marxian and Masonic, the Communist Manifesto. That's very important, because that was the whole grand picture of what they wanted to do. But McKinley was the beginning of this.
But if McKinley plays ball, he doesn't die. So something happened because he's assassinated by even a more enigmatic character. So what do you think was McKinley's downfall?
He was killed by Dr. Rixey. Dr. Rixey killed him.
Even though
in the mansion of the head of the Pan American Fair
in
Buffalo, New York.
Okay. So the shooter really doesn't kill him, who has an alphabet name I can't remember.
It's Leon Czolgosz.
So is he another
Polish.
MK Ultra patsy?
He's a Polish Roman Catholic, and he's an anarchist. And remember, the Jesuits controlled the international anarchist movement at the time. That's where they assassinated various heads of state. They assassinated King Umberto of Italy in 1900. They assassinated Sitsi, the Queen of Hungary, the Archduchess of Austria, in 1898. They stabbed her through the heart with another anarchist. They assassinated McKinley. They assassinated Alexander II, Tsar of Russia, 1881, with another anarchist group.
Did they get Ferdinand in Austria?
Yes, that was an attempted assassination to teach him a lesson. The Ferdinand, Archduke Ferdinand, that was done by Princeps, and there was a connection there. It was a Masonic connection, and the Jesuits today, or just recently, took the...
They have his gun?
They got his gun. I have a picture of it.
It just happened to be in our...
Right, they just happened to have his gun.
Holy man.
And a Jesuit gave last rites to Ferdinand.
Well, he's in heaven, no doubt.
Well, of course. So, no, the Jesuits pulled the whole thing off to incite World War I, which was vengeance on Germany for beating France in the Franco-Prussian War. Okay? So, again, back to McKinley. Okay, so McKinley, he was for the protective tariff. He was bimetal. He was He was a victim of the Spanish-American War. The Jesuits were fomenting a revolution in Cuba to break away from Spain, but McKinley refused to aid that revolution. So what happened was you have the Maine docked in Havana Harbor for the purpose of protecting American citizens there, and the Jesuits with their agents blow up the Maine and kill several hundred American sailors.
Right.
They steal all the valuables of the sailors and sell them off. And they sell back the pictures of their sailors to their families. This is all in The Devil and the Priests, The Sins of Priests, The Devil in Robes, was written in 1900. It gives a complete rundown of this. So now with this blowing up of the Maine, Congress, which is controlled by the Jesuits, is clamoring for war, which McKinley desperately tried to prevent. Well, we get the Spanish-American War. What does it last for 4 months? They make Theodore Roosevelt a hero with his Rough Riders. And in the Treaty of Spain, the U.S. had with Spain, in that treaty, every piece of Roman Catholic Church property is protected in the United States. Because in 1867, the U.S. government, under President Andrew Johnson, threatened to take every piece of Roman Catholic Church property from the papacy unless they would turn over John Surratt and send him back here for trial for the assassination of Lincoln.
Who demanded that?
The American government at the time under Andrew Johnson.
Right, exactly, okay.
1867. Although Johnson had to do this, he was forced to this because, remember, he lifted the bail on Surratt.
Okay.
He was a Mason working for Wiggett, Jesuit Wiggett there in Washington. He was a personal friend of Wiggett. He didn't want to do this, but he was pressured to do it by certain patriots. So, anyway, all this Roman Catholic Church property is now protected in this country. This country cannot seize any Roman Catholic Church property by treaty, which was protected under Article 6 of the Constitution. Isn't that clever?
Without a doubt.
So then, Cuba is pretty much annexed. Puerto Rico's annexed. And the Philippines, for an extra $20 million,
what is that
are
about?
annexed.
Yeah.
Pardon?
No, what is that about? I mean, all of a sudden you get all these, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. I mean, what?
And the Philippines. It cost an extra $20 million. But the Philippines was given to the U.S. Why was that done? For the purpose of World War II.
Yep.
To take Japan, to take China, we needed a Philippine base there as a base of operations and a reason ultimately to go to war with Japan when the Jesuits used Hirohito to attack the Philippines.
Right.
Okay? See how they planned this 50 years ahead?
Well, and of course, McCarty calls that shot in 1925.
Yes, she does. Absolutely.
And of course...
So anyway, the Philippines are annexed. Now, meanwhile, God is working His counsel and getting the gospel to the dear Filipino people. Many are getting saved, come to know the Lord. But the mystery of iniquity is running parallel to the mystery of godliness. Okay. So the Philippines are taken in, and the Jesuits always wanted to take Japan. And after taking Japan, taking over Japan, they would then take China. Well, the Jesuits took Japan with the Tokugawa shogunate when they caused it to resign in 1868. They assassinated Emperor Komi. And then Emperor Meiji takes over 14 years of age. He becomes the grandfather of Hirohito.
And that would be the movie upon which, what was that name?
Shogun.
Yeah, but the child emperor, remember that?
Oh.
I mean, that's not a big deal, but you struck me as a 14-year-old, and I'm thinking about the little emperor or something like that. Anyway, that's not a big deal. Yeah.
So anyway, they make him emperor, and then they centralize all power in Tokyo, and then the Japanese army becomes the sword of the church. And what do? They kill off all the Protestants out of the Far East. They don't arrest any Roman Catholic priests. They kill off the Protestants with the Japanese army. And that is from America. That is from a Jesuit periodical. Okay, so then after they get done using the Japanese to humiliate the Chinese and the rape of Nanking and so on, killing many Chinese Protestants because there was a Chinese inland mission there. And it's about the extirpation of Protestantism and heresy using the Japanese army. Then after that, then the United States defeats Japan, brings off the nuclear war hoax, submits Japan, and then from Japan they then communized China in 1949.
You're listening
Mao Zedong and bringing him to power with the CIA. So the Jesuits then used this. But this all was made possible by using America as a sword of the church, making it the Holy Roman 14th Amendment American Empire to reduce all nations to the temporal power of the Pope, beginning with the Spanish-American War that McKinley did not want.
You recall the first war of aggression by us, wouldn't you?
That's correct.
This is the Grassy Knoll on AM 1610 WVCX. This is Dade City Micro Radio. We have with us Eric John Phelps, author of Vatican Assassins, his website, VaticanAssassins.org. And this was an hour interview, which has grown into what will be now finally 2 hours. And we thank you so much, Eric, for being that aggressive, ambitious, whatever you want to call it, energetic, for being with us.
My pleasure.
And this is obviously just such, I don't want to use the word fascinating. In a sense, it is. The thing is that it's true. It's kind of also tragic. But the real history is something that makes fiction pale. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, it does.